Alright, YouTube, let's talk about pawn endings. Alright, it looks like the position's pretty even. 6 pawns, 6 pawns, it's white to move, but white is completely winning if he knows what he's doing. Now, I'm going to explain to you why, because you're probably thinking, huh, what's he talking about? Well, you're going to see what I'm talking about. First of all, we have to look at the advantages and disadvantages of both sides. We look at the queen side, which is the D file to the A file. We see that white has, what is that? A pawn majority. 3-2 majority, and that's a good thing to have. But we notice that on the king side here, black has a majority. But why is white's majority better? Now to explain that, I'm going to take the kings off the board for a moment. You're going to learn the difference between a mobile pawn majority and an immobile pawn majority. Black's pawn majority is immobile. It's been immobilized. Any attempt to push it forward will result in catastrophia. Notice, E5 gets taken. G5 gets taken. In fact, the only way to do a breakthrough for black is a rather ridiculous sequence of sacrifices. For example, E5 takes, then here, and then yes, black will make a passed pawn, okay? But in the meantime, this pawn will run all the way down. So basically, we can ascertain that black's pawn majority is screwed, unless the king has something to do with it. On the other hand, we look at white's pawn majority. We see this 3-2. We see the c-pawn. The c-pawn is going to be our winner. The proper move to start with would be c4, followed by b5, c5, b5, c6, and so on and so forth. Alright? And that's important because a lot of people make the mistake of going b4, which is a total dingbat moronic move for this one reason. Black goes, plays b5, and you know what this one pawn does? That one pawn neutralizes this entire pawn majority. That pawn stands there like, yeah, you're not on the list, you can't get in. You know? So now if c4 is like, hey, I take you, and the same can be said for a4. So basically, black is using one b pawn to stop the a, b, and c pawns. That's pretty stupid. So important to lead with the c pawn. Now let's put the kings back on the board, okay? Now hopefully, most of you know that the first principle of a king and pawn endgame is to get your friggin' king to the middle. And a lot of people say that and they don't know why they want to get the king to the middle. They think it looks cool. The point of getting the king to the middle is that in an ideal situation, okay, you'd like to walk your king all the way up and in and you'd like to go take everything. Now, of course, unless your opponent's a complete friggin' idiot, he's not going to let you do that. So here's an example of how this game would be played if both of the players were pretty good. King f2, king g7, king e3, king f6, king d4. Notice white confidently charging toward the center. Now the black king has to stay on f6, or the white king will just continue up, okay? But the white king wants to stay on d4 to protect e5 because if he ends up going here, black will play e5 and uh-oh, his pawn majority is becoming mobile, and that's no good. So the king stays on d4 and he keeps this on lockdown. Now, in the meantime, there's not a lot black can do. Black plays h6, oh boy. Now white is free to capitalize on his advantage. Or her advantage. I don't want to be a chauvinist. Okay? c4. Pretty obvious what white's going to do here. White's going to get a passed pawn, and he's going to smack black in the face. And personally, I condone that behavior. Now, the first example I'm going to show you here is a very simple one to demonstrate the winning method, and then I'm going to go back and show you how to counter a couple tricks black has. g5, b4, pawn takes pawn. And notice how white completely ignores this, okay? If white takes, this is exactly what black wants, because now he's got a chance with this pawn coming forward, okay? Now, why even give him a chance, you know? Okay, so black plays pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Notice the one pawn still holding down 2. Now black is going to get in Zugzwang. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's when any move makes your position worse. Okay, so black plays h5, and white just continues along with the plan. c5, h4. You see, black really doesn't have anything constructive to do here. Push. Black plays h3. Again, really just kind of waiting. c6. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. And now black is forced to play king to c7, because if he doesn't, c7 followed by c8 queen. But now that the king has given up ground here, we just advance the king forward. Kerplunk, direct opposition, that's when you're right in front. And you just take over some space. Again, black is in a little bit of a Zugzwang, okay? Plays a5. Now white just plays a4 and kind of locks it up. Okay? Now black has to move. He goes, let's say he goes here. I don't know. Here. Now, in this particular position, you can just take the pawn, you're going to be winning. But, for the sake of the example, let's say that in this position, black plays a6 to a5. Okay, so now it's your turn. What do you do? Alright, you're going to use this pawn as a decoy. He comes forward. c7. This will force the king to d7, right? You promote to your queen, and black will just take it, of course. But now the black king is way out in bum-effed Egypt. He can't do much. So the white king happily destroys all the black pawns. Kerplunk. Black moves, but it's hopeless. And Kerplunk. And for those of you who can play relatively well, you should know how to win with a pawn and king versus a king. I'll probably do a video about that at some point, but needless to say, white wins very easily here. So let's quickly go back to the original position and talk about the couple promotion tricks that black has. Because really, if you understand what you're doing, they don't mean anything, but it's important to cover just in case somebody ever tries them on you. Okay? You never know, especially in bullet and blitz chess, the kind of BS people will try. Anyway, back to the original position. Here we go. Okay, same plan as follows. King f2. King g7, king e3, king f6, king d4. Pretty obvious what's going on back to the center. And now black plays h6, and white goes in with the same plan. Black plays g4. Okay, it looks exactly the same way, but we're going to see a little change. b4 for white, and now g4. A little bit of a change, but white should not be affected yet. White plays c5. Now, if black just plays h5 and then moves the king back, he'll lose in the exact same way he did last time. But he has one last hope, okay? He plays h5 now, b4, and now he tries to trick white. Plays e5, which on the face of it looks completely nuts because it just gives away a pawn. But watch though. Takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, check. King e6, okay, no threats yet. We play c6, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. And now black plays this move, f4. Probably wondering, well, what is he, suicidal? And yeah, he is, because this is not going to work, but it's important that you see how to stop it. Take the pawn, and now h4. And the point of this is that black has a 2-to-1 majority here, and if white's king were like way over on a4, black would win with this pawn here. But notice something very important. White has 2 connected passed pawns right here. That means that wherever the king is, doesn't matter, they're going to be indestructible. Because if the black king tries to come here and take this pawn, the other white pawn just runs right down the board, okay? So in this position, white shouldn't take any risk. He should just play king to e3 and go, actually king to e4 might be a little better, and basically go deal with this threat. Black plays g3, he takes the pawn, and now if pawn takes pawn, the king comes in. And if h3, trying to be really tricky, king f3, and this pawn will be caught very easily after h2, king takes. King g2 followed by king taking the pawn. And now, after the king takes, you can just walk your king right back up and go support one of the pawns. Or you can push this one and that one and really mess with them. Alright, a little basic king and pawn enter tutorial. Have a nice day. You suck, I'm the best.